So, hello and welcome to the My Journey podcast, Peter. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit down and discuss university life with me today. So, you are, if I've got this right, the head of marketing and business strategy subject group at Hull University Business School. Is that the correct title?
Yeah, that will do. That is the title. I'm also a senior lecturer in marketing, as well as running the department.
Oh, busy then, especially at times like this.
Yeah, quite.
So, my first question is really, how did you get into academia? Because I know that you worked, obviously, in business before you moved across to university. So, how did that come about, that change?
Yeah, good question. And I suppose in careers in general is that you talk to people that have got a 5-year plan, don't you? And it's always a dreaded question for me is when they say, "What's your 5-year plan?" And I kind of look at them and think, if I've got a 6-month plan for my career, that's an achievement. And also people ask you about, what's the best advice you can give for career? And I say to be as open as possible. And because you don't know what the opportunities are going to be, you don't know what's around the corner. And so just be open. And it was never a grand plan to work in academia. You're right, my background's in marketing. So I've worked for global organizations in international marketing. And then I've also done a lot of consultancy work with all sorts of organizations, food, electronic, consultancy, and so on. And at one point, the university was one of my clients. So I was doing some work with them and I was doing some part-time lecturing. And I was particularly focusing on social media, the digital marketing, because those are the areas which I've got particularly my expertise. And I was doing a lot of work with them, and it got to the point where they said, well, we do have some openings. Would you like to apply for a role? So I did. I didn't get given it, still had to go through the procedure. And it kind of went, it's a brilliant place to work. And it's also a great balance, because you get to work with some of the leaders of the future, some of the entrepreneurs, some of the marketeers of the future, and seeing them develop, which is possibly the most rewarding part of it. But at the same time, I still get to work on research projects with organizations. So it keeps me extremely fresh from being challenged by, young, bright, aspiring people, but also organizations. So yeah, so it wasn't a grand plan, but I'm here now and I've been there for a while.
Obviously, that's how we met you and my lecturer when I was at the university studying marketing. And I think one of the things I'm really interested in, and things I loved about being at Hull Uni, was all the different extracurricular stuff that we were able to get involved with. And I know you're really passionate about that. Through yourself, we were able to attend the Chartered Institute of Marketing events, and we took part in a national competition and things like that. So how is the university, what are they doing currently, because it's been a few years since I left, to prepare students for the real world, specifically the business school, because I know the university is a huge organisation?
Yeah, you're right. I think that we hear in the press and you see in the media that it's a challenging time for graduates to enter the workplace. But depending on the roles which you're looking at, there still are a lot of organizations recruiting. But it's really important that students leave with as much experience as they possibly can. I think that's one thing. And probably the biggest challenge that they're facing is standing out and getting experience. So I know at the university, and you know from your experience as well, is that we try and build in as many things as possible to give them a CV full of things to talk about. Now we got a specific name for it now. We call it authentic business learning.
Okay.
And we start off by saying, these aren't students, but they are the future leaders. So you're a future marketeer, you might be a future accountant or a logistics specialist or a human resource. And then we start thinking, well, what does that person actually need, from their degree program? And then we start building things around that. So particularly in marketing, and we do a lot of live projects, which I know you might want to ask me about again later, or we can cover it now. We do work with the CIM. We take students to some of your events as well.
Yep.
Which is absolutely fantastic. The ones that you run, which has got a real community feel around it as well, Creative Point.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, it's important for us that the students get as much as they possibly can. So we have alumni events that are running as well, and we invite speakers in the evening. We've invited you in the evening.
Yeah.
tell them about personal branding. And because that is that challenge of standing out, it's absolutely vital. So everything we do is supposed to have a level of authenticity about it that mirrors what they would be doing if they were actually in the workplace.
And you mentioned the live projects there, which are basically a company or an organization will come to you and say, look, we've got this problem, and the students get that as a brief to try and solve. I think what I'm interested in hearing about a bit more about is like, what are some of the common themes that come up? Have you ever sat there and thought, actually, this same issue keeps coming up for businesses again and again and again? Or is it ever changing throughout the different businesses you work with?
Yeah, I think it is ever changing, and you do see similar challenges. And I think actually when you look at most commercial businesses, they all face the same challenges. That is, how can I increase my turnover? How can I get more customers? How can I innovate? They tend to be similar issues, no matter how big they are. You speak to some small SMEs that will talk about the challenge of being a digital business. And then I've had conversations with big global organizations. One of them is GE, General Electric, who are saying, how do we become a digital business? So anywhere along that spectrum, people still have the same challenges. Within marketing, it tends to be, well, how do we get attention? How do we get attention for people online? How do we build awareness, of our brand, of our offering, of our services? And then how do we, once we've got attention, when we've got awareness, how do we build sales on that? How do we make a sale? How do we become profitable? And then the big challenge, and you'll know this as well, is then how do we get people talking about it? How do we get others recommending and putting blogs together or putting reviews out there? Because that's when they start getting that acceleration, because other people are effectively marketing for you. So they are the similar challenges, but the organizations are completely different. You might be working for a seafood company or a sports organization or a health manufacturer. So it can be slightly different in many different ways.
I was going to say as well, the thing that I really enjoyed when I was at university was the fact that they didn't just come to us because we were young and they were trying to target a young audience. They came to us because we were seen, as you said just there, you've pitched these people as the marketeers of the future and leaders of the future. And, we are learning to be specialists in a particular area, and you track like that. I know this year, the students had projects for Team GB and the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra. So you don't get the opportunity unless you get an internship at a specific company to put these kind of brands on your CV. So the feedback you get from students must be incredible as well.
Yeah, I think they really do enjoy the live project. And I mean, it's something we've worked on for quite some time. If you look traditionally at universities focus on case studies, so case history, and then simulations. So they would create, digital simulation where people can work on a project. And we got to that stage, so we don't want to do that. I mean, we still wanted to use case studies to learn from best practice and also from other people's mistakes. But we don't want that to be the main way that students learn. It's not authentic. It's not the same as them actually standing in front of someone and thinking, this is a real issue, and that when I write this, I could be standing and presenting to them, and they might be making a change to their business. And I think there's nothing like that, which is why all of the partners that we get involved with come in and present to the students as well, because it makes it real. Yeah, it's vitally important to us. We get contacted actually quite often from organisations with specialist case studies or business tools and games and things. We just don't want to do this, and we want to work with real organisations. And as we've done more of it, particularly now, so if you took a marketing degree, you probably get, I think, about 6 live projects. Is that organisations know and they talk about it. And actually, we can, in some areas, they're coming to us asking us, well, what can we do? And you're right, it's not because they want to target a youth audience. It's because they want fresh ideas and they want some innovative insights. And I have to say that, I mean, as a lecturer, I mark these, and it's just, some people don't like marking. I would say some people say, I've got marking to do. And I would say, if you don't like marking, it's because you've got boring assessment. So if you've got something that's exciting, then you can actually enjoy it. And I have to say, year after year, I'm absolutely, really surprised at the high quality of output that we get, and about the creativity, but also the way that the students can analyze sectors. And that's why we say that they're future leaders, and the expectations of employers is that they've got these skills, and hopefully that's partly what we're doing, and it's what really drives us.
And I know obviously the idea behind these is to prepare people for the world of work, for want of a better term, and the university will produce their statistics every year that say this X amount of students went into a relevant degree level jobs. But as people who listen to the podcast on that, I took a slightly different route and decided to set up as a freelancer. So spent all them years building up all this great experience to go to an employer with, and ended up working for myself. So I think my question is, obviously, you're preparing students for the real world, but the real world is different for every individual student and however they approach it. Some might go into large, multinational companies, and others will go into small local businesses, and like myself, freelancing. And I just wonder, do you think that the university, I know there's members of the business school that do entrepreneurship and that side of things, but from your point of view, do you think the university sets people up to go down a route like I did in terms of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think, yeah. I mean, it's interesting is that some people, and it's not just students, some people have one key and they know the door that they want to open and they go for it. And those people know exactly what it is. Then others have got a bunch of keys and they're not really sure, and they're trying different keys out. And like, I suppose any good university, we've got different streams where you can go. So if you knew I want to set up my business and that's exactly what I want to do, then you can take entrepreneurship streams, and I can talk a bit about those and about the way that things are approached. Or if you want to work in an agency or something, then there's other things that you can do. But I think overall, the key skills which you're building, and the confidence you're building, and the persuasiveness and the analytical approach and the creative things are the same regardless of where you work. And it is, I think, in a lot of students' minds, so they join thinking, I'm going to be in a global, big corporate organization. But the reality of it is there are more jobs in the SME sector. So they are more likely to be in SMEs.
Okay.
So whilst, people think about the traditional graduate start with a big organization, there aren't as many of those. Actually, but working for SMEs can be a really exciting place. You don't have the same kind of levels of management and restraint. They can be more entrepreneurial, so you can see things happen quite quickly, rather than just building your career. But I think, if it's the question, I suppose, is university the right place to go if you're an entrepreneur? And I'd say yes and no. It depends. I'd say it depends on what the degree's like. And how it's structured and what it gives you. I don't think that every degree would be right for people that say, I want to be in my own business, I want to be an entrepreneur. And if you're going somewhere which is going to be very much textbook based and assignments, then probably if you're bursting with ideas and you want to get out and test things, that might not be right for you. But I know that my colleagues who run our entrepreneurship stream, the traditional university outcomes, like you say, where you might be thinking, how many people have got a 2-1 or a first? How many people are in a role? What are their salaries like? When I talked to Antonio Malfenzi Ferreira, who heads up our entrepreneurship scheme, he's saying, how many new businesses have been created? And he's unhappy if there's not enough new business. He's looking at his course material, he's looking at the projects, and he's saying, what else can I do? I want more new businesses at the end of this degree than started it. And when you look at the way that that's built up, and he's got another colleague, Esan, who works with him, they structure everything around about giving them the right kind of skills. So they're working with entrepreneurs on a weekly basis. They're working on live projects with global businesses and smaller businesses. They're making pitches. They're getting funding for their ideas. So that's why I say yes and no. It depends. If that's what you want, you've got to choose the right place to be. that's going to give you that kind of experience.
I have to say, from my experience, I felt I had the skills to take whichever route I felt I wanted to take at the end of the whole thing. Like, I think university traditionally maybe does push you into a mindset of trying to get them bigger roles within a international organisation where you can grow, go on an internship, that kind of thing. But when I came out, I could have done that. I had the skills to do that. I also had the skills to go work with an agency or an SME, or as I did, go on freelance work. And standing up in front of, going back to the live projects, standing up in front of a business and pitching your idea, there's nothing else that compares to that. Like, you do not get that experience from reading in a textbook or reading a case study. The only way you can get that is by standing up, putting your ideas on the line in front of everyone to criticize, to love, to whatever it ends up being. And we were lucky enough, me and a couple of fellow students, to do the pitch for the CIM. And I remember standing in that room in front of, the head of huge international brands, pitching our idea, and seeing other teams being, well, not ripped to shreds, but there were some tricky questions being thrown out there and waiting to go up, and thinking, this is going to be hard. And it was tough. We did well, and it was tough, but nothing compares to that. And the only place I feel you can get that is through a good university course, because if you go into the world of work through an apprenticeship or whatever, it might be years before you get the chance to do that work. You've got to earn your stripes almost, and you get that within a year or two at the university, which you can't get anywhere else. It was interesting. I was speaking to another agency owner, and he said that he thinks all entrepreneurs should go to university because it's a chance to test, because you've only got 16 to 20 hours contact time, maybe, if that, some a lot less, some a bit more, but you've got the rest of the week to play, to test, to try things, to put yourself out there. And again, when you're working full time, you don't get that opportunity.
Now, I think that there's some really good points there about testing and actually testing, failing in a safe place as well, where you've got support around you, where people are going to give you advice, and learning from other people's mistakes as well, so you don't actually make those when you're actually in a business. So you can I suppose leapfrog over some of the problems. And you're right. I mean, it's we look at like an unwritten contract. So we've got like a learning contract, which will be many pages, which you can sit and read. But we also say, if you can't stand up and deliver your ideas really well to any organization, then we haven't done our job properly. And likewise, I know we used to have a guy that was a lecturer in PR, and he said, if you can't write press releases, if you can't deal with crisis management, and you can't write a PR plan, then it's pointless doing a PR module. If we exit you, but you get a good grade, but you can't do these things, then we failed, on our contract. So we do have that unwritten contract, and actually, for some students, it pushes them a bit outside their comfort zone. But which is why we do it all the way through their degree. And you would have seen people, Matt, that start off, they're really kind of struggling with it, and by the end of their degree, they're fantastic. And you think, you look at it, because they've done it a number of times. They know what's likely to happen. They know what works, and they've become more persuasive and rounder. And I think that's absolutely vital. And I do say it to, occasionally you get students that don't like working in groups or don't like doing presentations, and you think, well, if you can't leave here and say, I know how to work in a team and overcome issues, and I can pitch an idea, if you can't do that, then you can have a 2-1 or a first, but we failed actually.
And that was the way to lose a room, wasn't it? To say we were doing a group presentation. But I would relish that opportunity. I used to love that. But, each to their own.
This year, one of the things that we tested on our digital marketing module is we tested a team building day. At the beginning of it, we thought, right, okay, sometimes you get group work issues. Let's do a team building day. And at the end of each module, you do a module evaluation questionnaire. And the number of students that have said they enjoyed the group work on a module, I have never seen so many people. It's because they did a team building day at the beginning, and they agreed contracts within the groups of how they operate. and what they are expecting from each other, and they learn a bit about their personalities. So yeah, we always learn and always update things.
That's really good to hear. So obviously when people are coming through university at the moment, maybe people are starting university or whatever, but obviously we're in crazy times at the moment. It's all a bit up in the air. Thinking about how things are at the moment and a little bit in general as well, what are the biggest challenges people face when leaving university, both for an employee or as an entrepreneur? Like, what are the things that you see when you maybe catch up with a student 2 or 3 years down the line that they go, I wish I'd made the most of this at uni or known this before I went out there?
Yeah, I think wow, there's a lot of things I can think about, but one of them is it's about a lot of it's about experience and taking as many opportunities you can whilst you do the degree. You get a real spectrum as students. Some of them will think, I just want to do my lectures and do other stuff outside of it, and then others that will take part in everything. That will be there at Chartered Institute of Marketing events, that will come down to Creative Point events, that will be there when we've got alumni coming in and presenting, or we've got external speakers, and they are just taking everything in, and you see those people just succeed extremely well in whatever they do. So I do think the challenge is experience. It always is that there are a lot of people that could look the same as you on paper. That's what I would say. And so what makes you different? And it tends to be, it's not that you've got a first or a 2-1, because there's going to be lots of other people that are going to be in that bracket as well. It's going to be, well, what else have you done and how have you done it? And what experience have you built? And you can learn so much from that. And you do talk to people at the end and say, I wish I did more of this. I wish I took part in more of these things as well. I think that's a really key important thing that I would say as a challenge. A silly thing I'm going to say now is that students don't like email, and then when they get into an organisation, they tell you, "Oh right, you do actually use email in real life," and the amount of email that they get at university pales into insignificance compared to what they get when they're in an organisation. So there's a big light bulb moment that goes, particularly when we have students that are on placement. You talk to them. I think also using your time wisely is that if you're doing a degree, and if you work most of the time during the day, you've got all evenings and weekends free comfortably, and you could probably do a part-time job. So just being structured and organised, because you need that in your career anyway. You need to be able to be focused, structured and organised. So I think those things can be really key. But yeah, standing out's important. There are jobs out there. Even now, there's a lot of jobs, particularly in marketing, digital marketing, social media. I think overall in the marketing place, marketing roles out there, in marketing roles within organisations, that I don't think that the number of roles are going to shrink. I think the shape is going to change. I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the shape of marketing departments, the shape of marketing change more rapidly than it probably was. And that, I think, is particularly because of digitization. And that's particularly been evident across COVID, the need to be digital. And that means organizations are looking for more people with social media marketing, more with digital skill sets than they probably have at the moment. So the opportunities are there. So you just got to make sure that you do the things that make you look like you're the right person for those type of roles.
Just going back over what you've said there, I think time management, in first year I couldn't deal with half as much as I was able to deal with in my final year, and building that up was really useful, especially now when, running my own business, all the things that come with that. It's really good to have the time management skills. Emails, 100%. Even for me, as someone who probably used my emails quite a bit at uni, they were still just a admin kind of thing where we got sent notifications and updates. It wasn't really a tool I used. And then in terms of standing out, I just remember when you told me about, there was the guy over from, I've forgotten his name, but it was from Pinterest at the time, had formerly been at Facebook. And I couldn't make the event because I was on placement at Hull 2017 at the time. But that guy comes across, and you probably told a story better than me, but there's only a few people who bothered to turn up to have a one-to-one with him. It's just crazy. I don't understand why people wouldn't take that opportunity to speak to someone who referred to Mark Zuckerberg as Zuck.
Yes. Yeah, name dropping.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's an example. You just take the advantage of opportunities. University degrees. If you just purely look at the price, they can look like they're expensive. If you look at everything around it, which you can get, then they can be very good value. And that's really up to individuals. We encourage people as much as possible. And even now, when we're having to do things virtually, we're still trying to do as much as we can, keeping in contact, getting them to do live pitches, but over video, either creating the videos at home or doing them on Zoom or other platforms as well.
Oh, that's good to hear. And like you said about the marketing jobs market, there was a piece that went up on LinkedIn recently from, I think it was somebody who worked at York City, and it was a tongue-in-cheek post about recruiting a social media coordinator, and it said something like 15 years experience in social media, 14 years of SEO experience, 13 years of this, that and the other, and it was like no extra benefits and 15k a year or something like that. And I think there is going to be a real shift. People are going to, as more people who've come through their career having had social media as a role and digital marketing as a key part of the business, then people are going to become more senior and appreciate them roles at the bottom and will want specialists in them different areas, because this idea that one person can do all of that is just crazy. You want graphic designers, photographers, videographers, social media, SEO all in one person. It's just ludicrous sometimes, but hopefully that is the change we'll see going forwards for students who are coming out of university. Obviously, I'd be silly not to have somebody who's got access to all of the different latest research and resources on the podcast and not ask you about trends in marketing at the moment. So from both a business and an academic point of view, obviously we're affected by COVID at the moment, but what are the trends that you're seeing starting to emerge and that people should be thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about working in marketing, I'm going to say two phrases that I really don't like at the moment. One is the work as normal or work as usual, and then the new normal as well, things I don't really like. But one thing is that marketing is so dynamic. And if I look back along my career, and I'm sure you will say the same, it's never the same, ever. So actually, this is just normal, that there's just another change, and it's maybe a little bit quicker than the last one has, but it's just constant change. And I think that if you're in a marketing career and you recognize that, is what makes it so exciting, that you know that the next year is not going to be different. However, I mean, there is one thing. I've got a quote from Lenin, which I don't think I've ever quoted Lenin before, but I've seen this recently. And that is that there are decades where nothing happens. So 10 years goes past and nothing happens at all. And then there are weeks where decades happen. And I think that's what's been happening now. That we've gone through 10 weeks, which has basically been like a decade of change. And there's a great phrase at the minute which has been used, which is called hyper digitalization. So we were on that route anyway, to become more and more digital, but it's happened now. It's like essential for organizations. And I think that this is going to be challenging and give us a lot of trends which organizations need to be aware. I mean, the fact that, we've all been moving online anyway. The UK is one of the most online retail environments in the world. But consumers are rapidly moving online. I've seen recent data, 56% of UK consumers have tried a new product or service recently. So it's a high number. They're more likely to be going back and purchasing those type of products online as well. Some of those changes and will happen. So I think organizations need to be aware of that. And for a few years now, we've been talking a lot about brand purpose, and this seems to be accelerated. And it's the thing of like, well, why do you do it? And I know that Matt, as an agency, as a consultant yourself, you probably dread when someone gives you a call and says, "Hi, I need a brand purpose." Can you give me one? which does happen. It is a question that does happen. Although if anyone's listening to this podcast and has that question, do give Matt a call.
Yeah, do. I'll happily deal with it.
I don't want to frighten anyone off. But this idea about, we use the word authentic, but it's about giving back, and it's the reason for why you do the stuff you do. And I think it's becoming more important than you can just see around you. I really liked across the beginning of lockdown, Morrison's, which said feeding the nation is more than our job. And they really repositioned what they were doing around that message, rather than for a supermarket will make money from selling food. At the University of Hull, where I work, we have this purpose about being fairer, brighter, and carbon neutral. And that is that we're fighting for a fairer organisation, for fairer education, regardless of people's ethnicity, regardless of their income. We want to be able to improve the lives of many other people, and also have a carbon neutral future. So I think by 2027, we're aiming to be carbon neutral as well. But some of the others I really like is, I don't know if have you seen the BrewDog hand gel?
Yes, yeah.
That's been great. The BrewDog has started to brew, I suppose, hand gel from some of their profits and give it free of charge to healthcare providers and care homes. And it's funded through
we see
a successful new beer, which is called...
You seem to drop out for a second there.
Okay.
So yeah, so we just heard about BrewDog and the hand gel. That was where we're up to.
Okay, yes, I'm talking about BrewDog and hand gel. But they recently launched their most successful new beer, which is called Barnard Castle Eye Test.
Yeah.
Which is named after the infamous journey of Dominic Cummings up to the northeast. And I love this. They've sold, I think they've sold nearly 600,000 cans of the beer. They've done 2 batches, sold out, and they're currently taking pre-orders for the 3rd batch.
Wow.
And all of the profits from this is going into making hand gel. So it's a real purpose within the organisation, and customers are really loving it, really getting involved in this and having a bit of fun at the same time. So I think this is a real chance now. And I suppose keeping up to date as well, the media right now, Boohoo.
Yeah.
Not paying people making their clothes in the UK enough, paying them well below the minimum value. Their share price is halved. And this is where the whole role of purpose comes in. You might do good clothes, it might be cheap, you might be able to deliver to me tomorrow, but am I happy with what your purpose is?
Yeah.
And it can impact your brand, and particularly because of social media. We talked about media consumption has changed. That's been a surprising thing to me, is that people are watching at the minute. They're watching more linear TV.
Oh wow!
Which the trend was completely away from that. They say 58% of the UK population are going to watch more linear TV, which was a real shock to me. But at the same time, more time spent on social media. And I think particularly, we've seen the rise of TikTok. It's on the back of it, TikTok got their timing right to be at a point where people have more time on their hands.
Yeah, and I think as well, what's interesting from my point of view is seeing that the people who are using social media more are openly saying that they intend to continue using it more after all of this has passed as well, which you wouldn't normally hear. Normally people are shocked to find out that they're using it more and say, no, I don't intend to do this more in the future. But people are saying, no, I intend to carry on using it at a higher level.
Yeah. And I think part of that is because social media has got back to its original purpose in a lot of respects, and that is about community.
Yeah.
And it's got that community going throughout lockdown period and throughout the effects of COVID. And it had probably lost a lot of that kind of community basis. And so people are using it to get in touch, to be involved in communities, to learn and to communicate. And I think that's why they're saying we're going to use more of it. They might not be doing the same things in it, but they're going to be more in that kind of environment.
And on a micro level as well, we're seeing a lot more updates from the social media platforms, because usually these updates take a long time to to develop and implement and roll out. So you've got the ones that they've been working on for 12, 24 months, that are coming out now, but also all of the short-term changes they're making in response to the situation we find ourselves in. So nearly every other day there's an update from one of the platforms saying they've limited how replies work, which was in response to all the harassment and bullying news stories that were coming out about 12 to 18 months ago. That's coming out now. And then alongside that, they've got the supporting small businesses kind of functions as well, which looks like lots is happening at the moment, but it's because some of it is forced, but some of it's stuff that would have been happening anyway. But yeah, from a micro point of view, there's so much more opportunity out there in terms of what you can do with the platforms now as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So just to round off this interview, obviously you work at the university. When this goes up on YouTube, people will see the backdrop you've got behind you of the beautiful grounds. But why should people pick Hull University? And especially at a time like this, I know we've discussed this on a previous call, but should people who are maybe coming to that stage in their career or in their education life where we're planning to go to university next year, should they still be thinking of going down that route, or is it worth postponing?
I personally would say they should carry on. They should go ahead and go to university. I think there's a number of reasons for that. I think one is that if you're going to a good university, regardless of the situation with COVID, now make sure that you get a good experience and you'll get a good organizations are going to need new talent. And so I think it's a good time to get the education now. I mean, the opposite side of it is that there's not a lot else to do. I mean, there's not a lot of travel which people can do. There's not as many roles for people that don't have that the kind of education and qualification. So I think it's really important to do so. And don't forget that regardless of what people say is going to happen, this is a short-term issue. And your degree should be 3 to 4 years, and so I would recommend everyone to go ahead and to do it. I don't think there's been a better time to study, and I know it's great. I work for the university. It's great you asking me to do the pitch of why people should come and study at Hull University. But I also want to say to people, if there are employers out there, if there's companies, I think now is the best time to recruit somebody now as well. This is the time, if you're looking at the shape of your organization, if you're thinking, what have I got? Where are my gaps?
Okay.
I think that there's some great students that are really innovative, that's got some really good ideas, some brilliant ethics in terms of the way that they work. I think it's a really good time to actually say, no, now's the time to recruit, to get people in. But in terms of why come somewhere like Hull? I think we've said about it in this podcast. It's about the authentic business learning. That it's that we do things differently. That we treat you as a future professional, and that's from day one. You'll be working on live projects with real organisations, so that it makes sure that when you graduate, you've got a really good business degree that's going to make you business ready. Can you cast your mind back to your first year project?
Yeah, so actually I started on a business management degree and did the common first year that all students get to do, and did the marketing module with Greencore to design a new celebration cake, and just thought, I love marketing. This is what I want to do. So that was when I made my decision to move across to marketing. And yeah, it was really good to work on that with, first few months at university, and you're working with a group of people you don't know on a real project for a huge company based in the city that I wasn't even aware of. Yeah, it was an incredible experience, really.
Yeah, brilliant. Those things, they stay with you, and that's the start of the journey, isn't it? Start of thinking like, oh, actually, I really enjoy this. I enjoy that creative element, and just part of the building bricks of where you're going to be in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Peter. Hopefully people who are listening have taken something away from that.
Yeah, I hope so, Matt. It's good to speak to you.